Hello, Veterans Network. This is Rick.
Hi, Rick. Lee Ulferts here, Commander of the Veterans of Foreign Wars Department of Minnesota.
Yes, sir.
Rick, I'm doing a big statewide motorcycle ride the end of this week. I've got 5 teams of riders coming from all over the state, and they're all linking up at the Crow Wing County Fairgrounds in Brainerd, Minnesota. The name of the event there is the Ride for Healing.
The Ride for Healing. So, Lee, is this mostly Vietnam vets?
Yes, sir, mostly, but we expect veterans from the Gulf War, OEF, and OIF, even the Korean War. It's for these vets to honor the service of Vietnam veterans and give those heroes the welcome home that most of them had never received 6 decades ago.
Wow, that's great, Lee. So it'll be a time to heal.
Yes, sir, a time to heal. Rick, can you mention this event in one of your shows for us?
Well, let's see. You know, Lee, I've got a better idea. What day do the riders start closing in on their link-up locations?
That would be on Thursday. That's Thursday, May 30th.
So we're talking this Thursday.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, today's Tuesday. Lee, wait one.
Yes, sir.
So there I was the next day, touching down in the pouring rain at Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport. 1 small suitcase, 1 broadcast video camera, and a tripod. And as I watched the downpour, I wondered if I'd just got myself in for 4 days of bad weather. As I bedded down that night in upstate Minnesota, I reviewed the route sheets that Lee had sent me. 5 teams of veterans on their motorcycles covering some major territory. Minnesota is one big state. Team Bravo left St. Paul on Memorial Day, May 27th, for a big sweep of southwest Minnesota. Both Bravo and Charlie teams were to link up at Camp Ripley for the final leg to the main destination of the event in Brainerd, Minnesota. All in all, the 5 teams would make stops at over 60 VFW posts along the way. But the rain kept coming and going all across the state. Team Alpha certainly had their share of the bad conditions as they rode on their southern route. I arrived at the post in Sauk Rapids where they were setting up for the arrival of Team Echo, and I spoke with Post Commander Tom Tauber, who served in Korea from 1960 to 1963. Tom talked about the effort that his post and all the other posts across the state had put in to make this event a success, and he underlined the hard work and planning by State Commander Lee Ulferts. Thank you for your service. Welcome home, and let's have a good weekend with this thing.
Well, thank you, and thank you back for your service.
Thank you.
And enjoy it. Have a good
All right.
one.
We'll do good. I know it. And then as the riders from Team Echo arrived and gathered, Commander Ulferts spoke to them. He spoke of their service, their honor, and he spoke about healing.
What a thrill to see people that care enough about a generation of Americans who were forgotten for so many years. It is really a thrill to see all of you out there, and I want to thank you for that. As I said at the last stop, one of the things I did when I began planning this about 1.5 years ago is I went to the Weather Bureau and I said, I want you to give me the week that has the coldest, the wettest week of the summer, and that's when we're going to schedule the event. Now, how'd I do?
State Commander Ulferts asked all of the veterans to come forward and face the crowd.
Wow.
As they stood there proudly and listened to him speaking at the podium, you could feel the emotional electricity being generated.
This group of veterans that came home, they came home to a nation who scorned them, who turned them aside, who for the first time in the history of this great nation blamed the war on the warriors. And they have borne the pain and the hurt of those days all of their adult lives. Today, the Vietnam veteran is passing from this earth faster than any combat generation since World War I. And they're passing for the same reason the World War I veterans did, because of that wonderful, harmless defoliant called Agent Orange. I have no doubt that every person standing out there knows someone that's passed from Agent Orange. Before we leave this earth, they need to hear your appreciation. They need to hear you tell them thank you, and more than anything, they need a hug and say, welcome home, well done. The sad part of our war is not only did the country spurn us, but in many cases our own clubs, our own posts of the Veterans of Foreign Wars turned us away also. We were told by the World War II veterans and the Korean veterans, well, you weren't in a real war. Well, you know what? We got a wall that's got 58,200 plus names on it, and I want somebody that doesn't think we're in a war to go tell those people and those families that they didn't die in a war, because they're dead, and they're just as dead as anybody that's ever died.
Kenny Schulte here from Post 6992, Sauk Rapids. Kenny's been very instrumental in helping to put this together, and day one, we're here. Got 2 big days coming up. Tell us about that.
Well, I think with what we got going tonight here to get things going here at 6992, we got a little get-together going on, but tomorrow will be really great because I think a lot of the veterans are going to be making their way up to Brainerd tomorrow. And Madden's, I think, will be a good time for everybody, as well as getting to Crow Wing Fairgrounds on Saturday for the final rally.
Right. And Jerry, you're a Vietnam vet?
I am.
Who'd you serve with?
25th Division.
25th. We were neighbors.
Yes, we were.
Okay, and here's Minnesota State Representative Tim O'Driscoll.
Correct.
Who's, you're on board with this, it looks like.
Oh, absolutely. I've been a supporter of veterans and veterans issues for a number of years, and in my role in the state legislature, I've been, this is my 3rd year, and I've been on the Veterans Affairs Committee all 3 years, helping our Minnesota veterans with the needs that we have, and very actively involved here in central Minnesota as well in bringing different veteran groups together. And we have a program in Minnesota called Beyond the Yellow Ribbon Community, and I was very instrumental in bringing together a number of cities in central Minnesota to support our veterans, and continue to do that personally and with my work in the legislature, as well as over the years my father's always actively got us involved in, from young on in veterans-related activities.
Right. That's great, Tim. You know, it's good to know we have veterans working for us, you know, in the state Congress, and because right now we have probably the smallest population of veterans in the U.S. House and Senate. And so we need backup. So
I'm not a veteran myself, but I certainly do gravitate quite readily to the veterans issues here,
right.
And have done a number of things and a number of fundraising activities during the deployment back in 2003, 2004. I did a lot of pulling Central Minnesota together to bring provisions to the troops overseas, and just continue to do things and continue to build. And I'm very proud of what we've done here in Central Minnesota and the success of our veterans clubs here in Sauk Rapids. We've got the VFW; they do a great job, and they've got strong membership here. So.
Right. Well, speaking as a veteran and speaking for all the veterans we have here, thanks for watching our back.
You bet. Thank you.
And thank you, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Dave Thomas. I was with the 134th Aviation Assault Helicopter Company in Vietnam.
Rodney Oman. I served in Vietnam in 1966 and 67.
1963-64. Mac V. Came back, so joined his group. Pretty gal just drove up. She got a beautiful bike. She's a pretty looking thing. Give me a kiss, honey. What's your name, by the way?
Rose.
Okay, vets out there, now you know no VFW would be complete without the ladies' auxiliary. And here I've got Toots And Marie, it's the big project that you have going on here at Sauk Rapids.
So we do a lot of projects, a lot of community services. In fact, all our time is donated to community services.
So, Toots, please tell me, how long have you been with the Ladies Auxiliary, VFW?
41 years.
41 years, folks.
I wasn't all my life because I'm 90 now, so I wasn't all my life a member.
You're only 90, I'm sorry.
I'm only 90, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ladies Auxiliary, VFW Post 6992, Sauk Rapids, Minnesota. And as I got to talk with the riders there, I could read one common feeling about the wind and rain that they had to deal with. It was, hey, we humped and slept in mud and monsoons for a year in Nam. What's the big deal? Yeah, after 40 plus years, these boys were still tough and ready to go. The next morning, Team Echo rode to St. Cloud, where they linked up with Team Alpha. The Alpha riders looked like they had a chance to dry out. Yeah, the Harley engines were rumbling real nice as the camaraderie and the brotherhood continued.
Bob Hiram, Navy Seabees, NSA Da Nang, 68 and 69.
Barry, U.S. Coast Guard, 69 to 73.
From there, it was off to Camp Ripley, where Team Alpha and Echo would link up with Teams Bravo, Charlie, and Delta. The riders received a warm welcome from this National Guard and regional training facility as the teams began to arrive one by one and completing the final link-up of all teams for the first time in this week-long journey. And though the dark clouds loomed above, the veteran riders for the moment were rolling in and staying dry.
Jim, 1st Infantry Division, 1st and the 26th Infantry, 1968-69.
All right, I'm Dewey Hermanson, Department Judge Advocate for Minnesota VFW. I am a 32-year veteran and Iraqi veteran deployed at age 58.
All of the teams now linked up and rolling. You want to hear revving motors and vets on Harleys? Well, we've got vets, we've got the revs, and we're closing in on the big day tomorrow at Brainerd. The entire 5-team mega ride pulled in for the night at the Cragen Lakeside Resort in Little Falls. This was a great opportunity to rest up and enjoy some well-deserved creature comforts. Of course, there's a whole lot of things better than sleeping in foot-deep mud of a rice paddy or the sweaty snake and bug-infested jungle. But for our riders, the best part was for all of them to meet and greet and share some amazing stories of those intense and crazy days. Those days back in Vietnam.
Dave, Big Red 1, 68.
John Price, Desert Storm, welcome home Vietnam vets.
Ron, Vietnam vet, U.S. Air Force, the train.
Randy, 1st Cav, 1971 to 1972.
And for Commander Lee Ulferts, this was what his prescription called for. A time to remember, a time to reflect, a time to honor, and a time to heal. The vets were invited to a night of appreciation at the nearby North Central Speedway, where various class winners dedicated their victories to all of the state's veterans. The next day, I arrived at the Crow Wing County Fairgrounds at Brainerd. I got there early before the riders arrived, and the first thing that caught my attention was the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Traveling Wall. The wall is a 3/5 scale of the Vietnam Memorial in Washington, D.C., and covers almost 300 feet from end to end. This traveling memorial stands as a reminder of the great sacrifices made during the Vietnam War. It was made for the purpose of helping heal and rekindle friendships and to allow people the opportunity to visit loved ones in their hometown who otherwise might not be able to make the trip to Washington. As I observed it in silence, I was overwhelmed. It was emotional. Just like the wall in our nation's capital, it puts the sacrifices and losses of that war into a very profound perspective. Nearby, there was a booth where they would look up a fallen soldier's name for you and print out a slip of paper with the exact location of that soldier's inscribed name. And then I could finally hear the rumble. The riders were arriving. And as they entered and rode past the wall, you could feel the emotional electricity. One of the key elements of the event was Commander Ulferts' support for the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund and calling for donations for the completion of the Education Center at the National Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. He had special commemorative coins made as part of his fundraising effort. The Memorial Fund was represented here at a booth where I spoke with Fund Development Associate Netta Squires. She explained that one of the features of the planned education center was to gather and display photos and stories of the fallen whose names are on the wall. To date, over 32,000 have been collected. And as more riders from all the teams continued to arrive, I made the rounds, talked to more vets, visited booths, had a hot dog. I was having a good time.
I want to recognize one group real quickly. With those who rode with us all week, please stand. Through the rain, through the wind, they rode. And what an honor to be with you. I thank you. As I looked at our caravan going from Jordan to Mankato, and I saw 5 motorcycles in front of us. It's a 40-mile ride, and we ran through the thunderstorms all the way, and you know what? Not one of those 5 motorcyclists was a Vietnam veteran, but to a person they said, we're doing this because we believe in what you guys did. And I'll tell you, that's commitment. And that tells me that, you know, the people of this nation, they pretty much get it right. Unfortunately, the politicians don't hear that. When I was growing up, this generation, going from 1950 to 1975, that 25-year period, saw more changes than I would say that any part of the history of this world has ever seen. And Mr. and Mrs. America, as they watched that television, as they watched that Indian box and they saw the bleeding, it was unreal to them. But I'll tell you what, to every one of you that were there, it was real. Our thoughts weren't about what was happening here. Our thoughts were about staying alive for just one more day. In 1968 got to be the mother of all battles, something called Tet, the Chinese New Year. Thousands died, but we still repelled them. We felt good about that victory, but our friend Walter Cronkite came on the evening news, said we've lost the war. Saigon has fallen. And Mr. and Mrs. America believed that we had lost the war. So while we sat out in the jungles and we sat out in the bushes waiting to come home, waiting to get on that freedom bird to come back to the world that we knew, we found when we got here, it was not the world we knew. And the world didn't want us. Didn't matter where we went, we took the hit. Because the first time in history, America blamed the war on its warrior. And we have borne that ever since. And there's hurt, there's pain inside of all of us, but we learned how to deal with that. So today this week we had what we call a ride for healing. And it's a ride to reach out and touch all of you who serve. Would all of you who serve please stand? All of you who are awarded the Vietnam Service Medal. You know what? Come to a VFW. That's where the heroes are located. That's where the people who lived through hell and have come back and they've raised families and they've been productive in this country. And they're the ones that need a fan club. They're the ones that need thanks. Thank them.